Hi, I'm Fred Van Lente. I write comics and graphic novels for a living, and I believe you can too. I provided content for many well-known franchises, including Spider-Man, Avengers, Deadpool, and Pathfinder. I've also created my own comic series like Weird Detective and Action Philosophers. Comics are a medium of infinite possibilities, but let's be honest, the core role in comics is that of the artist. Without them, it's just words. As a writer, it's your job to guide your artistic collaborators to the story you're telling. And you know what the best part of that is? It's totally okay if you can't even draw a stick figure. Simply put, visual storytelling is about shifting the importance of objects in space. Once you can grasp this basic concept and apply it in all its variations, you're free to tell any tale you want. Happy, sad, thrilling, or all of them put together. In this Domestica course, you'll learn how to master the two key aspects of writing a successful comic: solid visual storytelling and a professional-looking script.
Hey everyone, this is Gen X. We're back in the building. I cannot believe it. We are at the tail end of our show, but we are by no means, we're still hitting home runs out the park. And I'm so excited to be having one of our friends, newly found friends. And I'm so happy that I know I've been hounding him and saying, hey, can you get on the Gen X Comics Virtual Con? And he has graciously accepted, and I'm excited for him to participate. At this moment in time, I'd like to introduce you to our I would say probably one of the most esteemed folks that we've seen in the writing of comic books and beyond. Fred Van Lente is a 6-time New York Times best-selling comics writer, novelist, playwright, whose work spans mystery thrillers to historical fiction to superheroes to comedy and so much more. Please check him out on his website. And he's also graciously given us, as part of domestica.org, to sign up. And there's 15% off, and make sure that you go to his booth. It's good until the end of the month. So if you sleep on this, that's your fault, not ours. So we done told you. So if you want to learn more beyond this, and then Fred is going to actually take it over from here. And he's going to present some stuff to us. And if we have a Q&A at the end, we will do it. So, Fred, over to you.
No problem.
There we go.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody out there in Cyberland. I really appreciate y'all coming out here. I thought I could do a bunch of different things, but I thought I'm a big history guy, and so I like talking about history, and I like talking about process. And so I will give a slightly condensed version of a story presentation I gave at Athens Comic Con in Greece last year. I was having some interesting challenges trying to get this to load, but I think I have figured it out. Let's try this here. All right, cool. So one of the most important things y'all need to know, those of you who want to be writing comics or serialized, sorry, just checking out I'm not familiar with this interface. Okay, I think I'm good. Those of you who want to get into this game of writing for comics or TV or movies or any point, it's really great to wrap your idea around this concept of a story engine. I am Fred, as Joseph Gen X said. I've written a lot of comics, a lot for Marvel. I've written Spider-Man and Iron Man and all the Mans. But G.I. Joe, Valiant stuff. I do my own nonfiction comics. I have written lots and lots and lots and lots of comics. There's a graphic from another show I attended where they very graciously gave me a whole bunch of just attack you with a quilt of covers that are all the various things that I've done. And I also teach comics. I have, if you want to stick around to the end of the show, there's be a little prize. If you want to learn really the basics of comic storytelling and script writing from you, then the Domestica course is for you. You can get that at domestica.com. This material I'll be covering here is not included in the other course, so you're getting sort of a bonus. But I'll give that code, that checkout code, at the end. As Joseph said, at my booth, you can get that code as well. I think I don't really understand what that is, but I'm sure hopefully you guys do if you've been here much of the day. So anyway, let's start our story engines. All right, let's go for it. The concept of serialization in media really started with this guy, and I don't know how many of you people can immediately recognize him from his photograph. Many people can. He was pretty famous. His name is Charles Dickens, and the first sort of serialized story in at least English modern publishing was one of his first, really what became his first novel, a book called The Posthumous Papers of the Pickwick Club. And this was serialized in individual pamphlets, just like today's American comics, between 1836 and 1837. Each issue, which you see the cover there, had 2 chapters. And Dickens, who was maybe 25, 24, 26 at this point, was originally contracted by the publisher to provide captions for humorous drawings of various sporting mishaps based around this comedic Pickwick Club that was, run by a bunch of goofballs. And the series became so popular and it sold so well that it spawned an entire industry, to the point where many of your favorite novels of the 19th century were originally serialized. That is to say that you had a pamphlet, or it was in the newspaper or magazine. You got a couple chapters, and then there was a cliffhanger, and you had to come back next time to find out what happened. Count of Monte Cristo, Uncle Tom's Cabin, that was the sequel, Uncle Tom's Cabin. The Woman in White, which is one of the first Gothic novels, Crime and Punishment, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. All in various countries, from the United States to Britain to Russia to France. They all adopted this form of storytelling. When it comes to comics, specifically comic strips, the first comic strip to really embrace this concept of serialization, the idea that you're telling a continuous storyline, was Gasoline Alley, which had started years before in 1918, but about this mechanic who lived at the end of Gasoline Alley, who was a bachelor. But then in 1921, King introduced this new character, this baby that got left on the main character's doorstep, and he was known as Skeezix. And the gag with Skeezix is that every year of Skeezix's life, he would follow this continuing storyline, but Skeezix would actually age in real time. So by the time we got from 1921 to 1941, when Skeezix was 20, there was a whole marriage storyline, and then Skeezix sort of formed his own family and stuff, and readers were riveted by this. I don't know. I feel like you could have dragged that out a little bit more. I don't know if Skeezix needed to absolutely get married at 20, but what are you going to do? And so Gasoline Alley was kind of a humorous strip. Most newspaper funnies were funny. That's why the word comics came from. But in the 1920s, you got a lot more serious with a lot of your strips, and you had a lot more adventure strips. And one of the first adventure strips of serialization was Capmeasy, which was a spin-off of Wash Tubs, which was another humorous strip. But Capmeasy was this soldier of fortune who hung out with the kind of goofy, nerdy Wash Tubs, the main character, and became so popular, basically eclipsed Wash Tubs entirely and took over the whole strip and became Capmeasy. And that was another strip with a lot of cliffhangers to it. And a medium that copied comic strips was the movie serials. Now, the logic here was that movie-going in those days, and the way movie theaters showed movies, was much more similar to TV channels that we have today, where you could like channel flip, and you'd have like a documentary, and then you'd have a cartoon, and then you'd have the news every once in a while. And so the idea was to get you in the seat. You'd pay for a seat, and people would come in and out buying popcorn and spending more money at the theater, and they wanted to keep you there as long as possible. So the classic era of movie serials was from 1937 to 1955. They took a lot of their ideas from comic strips. The poster you see before you now was from a very famous comic strip called Flash Gordon. By the way, if you haven't yet seen the new Flash Gordon that just debuted a couple weeks ago, it's terrific. You should check it out from King Features. It's on their website. So the idea behind the movie serials was they're inoffensive but exciting material for kids during the day. They wanted, the parents to park their kids at the movie theater, but they weren't very sophisticated. They were purposefully not very good to sort of drive adults to buy higher price tickets for the evening for the more adult shows. And famously, movie serials had cliffhangers, right? There were chapters. You see there are 13 thrilling chapters there under the Flash Gordon thing. And the Republic Pictures was the movie series that was probably most famous for cranking out the most serials. And they declared that there was not a dry pair of pants in the house at the end of one of their serials, meaning little kids had all peed themselves from excitement, wondering whether or not the hero would come back from whatever terrible cliffhanger they had put him into at the end of each episode. And I should point out that it is from movie serials that we in fact get the term cliffhanger. Usually it was literally somebody hanging off a cliff. Those of you who want to argue over what the first Marvel movie is, whether it was Blade or Howard the Duck from the 80s, or some people say, in some countries, the first few episodes of the Spider-Man and Amazing Friends were released as a theatrical feature. That is all wrong. The first Marvel movie was Captain America, a 15-chapter Republic serial from, I believe, 44, maybe 45. It is really bad. And I'm not being snobby about this. It's just not good. For some reason, Captain America is not involved in the war at all. His name isn't Steve Rogers. We don't get an origin. He doesn't have a shield. You can see there in the poster there, he's got a gun. It was just kind of demented. And the cliffhanger in the first chapter of the Captain American sequel was they're trying to find the bad guys. A mad scientist got an earthquake machine, and Captain America's trying to stop him and get the earthquake machine. But he goes into a building and he gets hit with the earthquake machine. And you see there in the middle image of Captain America getting all freaked out because the building's about to collapse on top of him. And so the next week you see is the mechanical executioner. So you'd see the building collapse on Cap. Oh no, he's dead, maybe. And then next week would be the mechanical executioner. And so you come back next week in the theater, and then it would be chapter 2, the mechanical executioner, and you found out Cap dove out the window or whatever. Even though, serialization was founded by someone who's, high literary merit like Charles Dickens, it really fell out of favor in the mid-20th century, particularly when television came around. Comics initially, comic books, where Captain America came from, obviously, stayed away from serialization initially for the same reason TV shows did. In the early days before VCRs and streaming and things on demand, you never knew, when a person was picking up a comic casually off the stands or turning into Mission Impossible or whatever TV show it was. So you didn't want anyone to be turned off by the fact that they were diving into the middle of a continuing story and would get lost. So comics in prime time, dramas and comedies adopted what I like to call the episodic format, where each unit was a self-contained story, as opposed to serials, where each unit of a story was a chapter. This is from the Captain America around the 1950s that Marvel tried to do that was a total disaster. But there are other places where serialization was very big, such as soap operas. Soap operas started in radio shows that were largely created by this woman who you see on your screen, Erna Phillips, who was known as the Queen of the Soaps. Between 1951 and 1959, more than 30 soaps debuted across this is 3 networks, and they had 30 shows. So soap operas definitely embraced the serialization format. And the first comic book to really embrace serialization in a continuing way, adopted a lot of things from the soap operas. And that was Steve Ditko and Stan Lee's Amazing Spider-Man, where Ditko in particular very much wanted readers to care as much about Peter Parker and his supporting cast, and was going to fall in love with the girl at school, or Betty Brant, his boss's secretary. And so they would do all sorts of would Aunt May die of some mysterious illness? So really, Spider-Man was the first comic to really embrace serialization. But again, these stories were still mostly self-contained. Can you guess what the first Marvel comic to have a to be continued in it was? I'm waiting. Did you guess? Ant-Man and the Wasp. Of course you did. That would be obvious. So this bit where they fight Whirlwind is the very first to be continued in Marvel Comics. And Marvel Comics is part of their sort of realism, and what distinguished them from DC is they started doing more and more serialized storylines. And in fact, once comics fell out of favor in the newsstands, and magazines and newspapers, their sales really dropped, and they moved into these specialty comic stores in the early 70s. That's when serialization became more and more important, in that because you lost the casual fans, and so the hardcore fan decided to start following along. And so before, on the newsstands, you see that little girl and her dog. It's the most adorable thing ever. I've spent many time looking at that photo from the 40s to figure out what comic she's actually reading, but I can't really tell. You just grab up the stand. It was 10 cents, it was 12 cents, it was 15 cents. It was disposable. But in the comic book shops, also the other problem with newsstand distribution with comics was that it was very sporadic. So you never knew whether or not you would be getting your the correct comics you wanted at the correct time. So it was a little rough. Comics shops make sure with pull lists and pull box and everything else that you absolutely get every single comic on time. And then in the 90s, TV shows, particularly science fiction shows like X-Files and Star Trek Deep Space Nine, had serialized storylines where X-Files in particular was very famous for having these Monster of the Week episodes that were self-contained. But then there were sort of mythology episodes where it moved along the storyline of the alien conspiracy and what happened to Mulder's daughter, all this stuff. Likewise, Deep Space Nine had continuing storylines, but a couple seasons, had standalone stories, single self-contained episodes. But as the series moved along, there was the Dominion War and a bunch of other sort of continuing storylines that really sucked fans in and kept them there. And then, I like to make the argument that Netflix and the streaming shows were kind of like the comics shops of TV, in that then TV could then abandon its reliance on standalone episodes because people were binging, right? And what really put Netflix on the map, went back when they were just sending DVDs to you through the mail, was Breaking Bad, which obviously was a very much each episode was a chapter of larger storyline. And, watching a single episode of Breaking Bad, I would argue, is not super satisfying. And, thinking about what makes a good story engine. So this is a TV term. I stole this from TV writers. Your story engine is the elements of your premise which allow you to continue producing compelling units of story, such as chapters, episodes, or issues, over an extended period of time. A truly ongoing series doesn't end. An episodic series doesn't end. The guy who created ER had this great quote, which was, you have a beginning, which is the pilot of the first episode, and then it's all middle, right? And then, but with the serialized story, it's very different. Episodic series have story engines in which the protagonists have a very open-ended goal that may generate many different stories of a similar nature. Serialized series have story engines powered by a single goal, and each episode is a mini story about the character trying to get closer and closer to that goal. The most common, one of the most common episodic story engines is Cops and Robbers, right? There's a reason they call Superman's struggle the never-ending battle, because there's always going to be some wrong for Superman to right. Every day brings new crimes for the police and prosecutors of law and order to investigate and prosecute. Episodic series tend to be situation-driven. They're often workplace-oriented, whether that workplace is the mafia in the case of Sopranos, or It's the Starship Enterprise in various incarnations of Star Trek, and of course, a bunch of people live together in the same place, like on Friends. While serialized series tend to be goal-driven, the goal of Walter White in Breaking Bad is I'm dying of cancer, I need to make money for my family. And then, the most successful movie franchise of all time, the MCU, had the serialization of the magic Infinity Stones, right? They'll make Thanos a god, and so running around and trying to get the stones were an important part of the Infinity Saga, which a director Alfred Hitchcock called Object Goals MacGuffins. There's a whole cute little video of Hitchcock talking about MacGuffins there, but I can't play it on this technology, so it's on Vimeo. You should check it out. It's great. Just say Hitchcock MacGuffin video. It's pretty cool. That said, any goal or MacGuffin can have an episodic or serialized treatment. A bunch of people trapped on a desert island. That could be the episodic sitcom Gilligan's Island or the serialized drama Lost, right? And so basically your story engine is composed of your main characters who are living or working at wherever, who has to achieve a goal or find a MacGuffin or achieve a goal or get a thing, and is imposed by various obstacles, enemies, forces, such as that. Some shows state there. So I list here a bunch of this. Time is getting away from me because we started kind of late too. But so for Captain America, the third bullet point, District Attorney Grant Gardner dresses up as a masked patriot and grabs a pistol to fight evil outside the courtroom for some reason. Ha ha ha. That was the goal of Captain America and Captain America, the Republic serial. And some shows tell you this story engine right at the beginning, right? Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of Starship Enterprise, et cetera, et cetera. And it's important when your heroes achieve their goals, your series ends, right? And so the hero's goal has to be broad and open-ended. So, cops and robbers, interesting jobs, maintain a relationship, raising a family, a lot of soap operas and Gasoline Alley. While in serialized show, or it can be a single goal that's very hard in and of itself. Like, for example, I want to be cured of being the Hulk in the Incredible Hulk TV show. Find my wife's killed her, become a wealthy drug kingpin, escape an uninhabited island, claim the throne of Westeros, right? These are all big goals that take many seasons and many episodes to do. We can call many of these shows episodic shows. The Chosen One is a popular story engine that's both broad and specific. We can think of many storylines that are about someone who's destined to do great things, like Harry Potter, or Kyle MacLachlan in Dune. I forget the name of the main character of Dune. Greg Atreides. There we go. It is Paul Atreides. Greg is somebody else, and that guy in the middle who you may have heard of. So a good exercise for you guys who want to try your hands at this is to turn on your story engine and let it run. So after you come up with your story engine, generate as many log lines, which is to say capsule descriptions, like you'd find in your cable guide, as you can. Your capsule descriptions tend to be simply more specific iterations of story engine. So one episode Superman fights Lex Luthor, one episode Superman fights Metallo, and one episode, Superman fights Brainiac, et cetera, et cetera. So, and what's great is if you sit down the piece of paper, a blank word processing document, just generate as many of these ideas as possible. So turn your story engine on, but your critical brain off. You don't need to really worry about how these stories actually work with each other. You can weed out the weak ones later. And that is a very super quick version of that presentation. I apologize if I talked really fast. I'm not going to lie to you. I have movie tickets for 6:00. So that's partly why I have a hard out at 5:30. We did get started a little late, but it seems like I got through everything. If you want to go through the actual process of learning how to think like a comics writer and script like a comics writer, and then how to find artists for your projects, once you complete your scripts, please check out my course at domestica.com. And thank you guys for coming to this con and this presentation. And as a thank you, use that code, screenshot that, or take a photo of it, write it down. If you use that at checkout, it'll be 15% off. When you check out, I think the price is normally $20 for a 3-hour course, which, by the way, you own forever. There's no time limit there, unlike that code. But so that code is good until the end of this month, until November 30th. Wow. Can't believe I got that all done. Cool. So that's my story, and that's my story engine, and I'm sticking to it.
You sticking to it, Fred? Wow. I know you have to go. One question.
I got 5 minutes or so.
What movie are you going to go see?
The Holdovers, the Paul Giamatti movie with heck, what's the name of the director? The guy who did Election and Sideways.
Okay, awesome. Well, as you can see, people are sending you emojis with the hand claps, so that's awesome.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. Hope that was fun. If you want, check out my book, Comic Book History of Comics, which goes into a lot of the stuff in detail. That's wherever books or comics are sold, and at your local library. It's on Kindle.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And
your course is amazing, by the way.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes, that's right. You took it.
Yeah, the course is great. So that's why I was excited that people could actually take that course. And if people need to reach you, what's the best way to reach you if they want to pick your brain or follow you?
So the best way to find me is on x.com, whatever the heck it's called now, Twitter. I'm on Twitter and Blue Sky and Instagram and Facebook as Fred Van Lente.
Okay, cool.
And I also have a website, fredvanlente.com. You can email me on that website, but just to warn everybody, I do get a lot of requests for like advice and stuff, which is cool, but I tend to send them to the domestic course. As the Joker once said, if you do something well, don't do it for free. So, and should we all emulate the Joker? No, don't. Do not. You wouldn't advise that. Bad idea. He's a bad man.
I would say, which version are you talking about?
That is a great quote from The Dark Knight. That's where.
Yes.
It's the Heath Ledger Joker, I guess.
Yes. And I would say probably the best Joker ever.
Sure.
Okay.
Man, I can't really argue with that. But yeah, if anybody has a question or two, I will do my best to answer them before I have to sprint out the door.
Yes.
Peter's not that far, so it's not that big deal.
Bless him with any questions.
I know you have somebody else up at 5:30.
Yeah, Kenneth. Well, it's a recording, so that's why. How do you deal with writer's block?
So writer's block is essentially the fear of writing something bad. And what I tell people, this is what I was talking about in the presentation, where turning your critical brain off. The easiest way I say this is give yourself the freedom to suck, because you will. Almost every piece of writing is bad before it is good. And so just do the writing vomit, and then you're going to get back. And the poetic way I like to think of it is a piece of writing is like the opposite of a car crash, right? You start with a car and people in it, and then it smashes into something and it's splattered all over the road, and then the cops and everybody show up and try to piece it all together. Piece of writing is the exact opposite. You start with the body parts and the blood and the glass and the metal and the tires, and it's your job to then reassemble it into something that's living. Awesome. So the best way to deal with writer's block is just to give yourself permission to be bad and to write badly.
Give yourself permission, y'all, because you'll never perfect your craft. So
love yourself, guys.
Yeah. All right. Any more questions? What's next for you? What have you been working on?
I'm working on like many writers, I'm working on a bunch of secret projects I can't talk about. I guess immediately I do a crime comic for Dynamite Comics I love about a crazy female Punisher called Jennifer Blood.
Yeah.
Which I really love. And the next series of that drops next month. It's called Battle Diary. It's Jennifer Blood versus neo-Nazi prison gangs. And it's really bloody and it's super fun.
As it should be.
If you want to see Jennifer Blood shoot many Nazis, get Battle Diary #1, which is out in December.
That's awesome. And I know you alluded to this, I know you have to go, but how do you navigate the difficulty of finding great artists to feed your vision? It's
hard. I mean, the luck, I mean, I am lucky in that I am well known in the industry at this point, so they come to me. Mm-hmm. So, I think that for a lot of folks, I ended up going to my comic club in college and meeting artists there. So it's hard. I mean, the simplest thing I can do is I can recommend is pretty much every municipality everywhere in the many, particularly in North America, but many places in the world have Comic Cons. Go there and look for artists and chat to people and befriend people, and it really helps. It really helps a lot if they live where you live in your town or general area, but it's not necessary. Like right now I'm working with someone in Chile, right now I'm working with somebody in France, right now I'm working with somebody in Italy, so it's everybody's everywhere. So it's Canada, I'm working with somebody in Ottawa, Canada, so everybody's everywhere. And it's and then the guy doing my nonfiction comics with lives half a mile from me here in Brooklyn, so it's literally at the South Pole and half a block, half a mile away from me and everywhere in between.
Well, I'm also a fellow Brooklynite. I don't live there anymore, but I miss it. Favorite spot to go is Farmer and the Deli for their sandwiches, which is on Myrtle Avenue and Adelphi Street. So, nice. But that place has that place has a special place in my heart for sure. So I miss it. So hopefully sometime soon, we'll hopefully cross paths in person at some point.
Yeah, that'd be great.
You are amazing.
Thank you.
I've been looking up all your stuff and really can't wait to pick up your book too.
Awesome.
And I know some folks on the chat have said that as well, that they're going to be picking up your book. Please go and get the domestica.org account set up, get your coursework done, and make it happen. You want to make it work, make it work. Fred _Van Lente Gen X. Okay, 15% off through November 3rd. Awesome. Thank you, sir. Have a great time.
I will.
And enjoy the rest of your night.
Thanks a lot. I will talk to you soon. Be well, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.